student from the London School of Economics.
But I think you probably need to tell us about your other affiliation.
Yeah, of course. My previous position is a Chinese diplomat. Yeah, with a special focus on ASEAN issues. I think in 1991 that when Philippines first granted your visa in the Renaijiao, you also called the second Thomas show, and that Philippine officials promised to China several times, said that the visa will be removed soon, saying that Philippines won't be the first country to violate the DOC, which is the declaration of the parties of the declaration in the South China Sea. But nowadays, it's more than 25 years. The visa is still there. And also the same situation to the middle-range missile. That I think last year in July, the spokesperson of the defense of the Ministry of Defense publicly said that the missiles will be removed after the joint exercise with the United States. But recently, you changed the position and saying that it will be permanently deployed in Philippines.
Okay, so can you get to the question?
So the question is why such things happen again and again? Why Philippines play such game again and again? And yeah.
Well, they're not games. First, we never made a promise. People say there was a promise, but there's no record of the promise. And, you know, as far as if the concern is with the DOC, I think China has already reclaimed at least 4 areas within our EEZ, which have been transformed into more than just reclamation activities. They are actually used for other purposes and certainly well developed. So I think before we talk about violations of DOC, we have to see what's been going on in the region. I don't think at any rate, the one ship which is there was never any promise for that. As for the launches you said on the Typhoon launches, these are purely for defense. They're not aimed at any country. And as for missiles, I don't know which country has more missiles, China or the Philippines. And other countries too in the region have missiles. So I think that's how we should look at this. These are purely for defense. And we've already said that essentially they're not necessarily there on a permanent basis.
And there's a very good follow-up actually from Thibaut Spillet online. He says, how confident are you that the Philippines has the required military capabilities to counter China in the South China Sea and defend its jurisdictions? And which military capabilities is the Philippines seeking to acquire to counter China?
We are seeking to enhance our defense capabilities. We've always said that our capabilities are not aimed at any particular country. We're a country which is aiming to ensure our defense, our security from the defense angle, our economic security, and that's all we're doing. We're not intending or aiming to, say, challenge any country. We're open for cooperation with all countries. All we ask, really, is that countries observe international law, at least as far as South China Sea is concerned. And also, we're open to all kinds of cooperation with countries. In no way are we intending to enhance capabilities and aim them at any particular country.
And I know that over the years you would have had many formal and informal encounters with your Chinese, in discussions with your Chinese counterparts. Mm-hmm. I mean, then, do they ever give you a sense of what they want? Because I think in the end, if you're going to have a stable, sort of peaceful future, I imagine, need to understand their position clearly enough so that you can find some sort of compromises and middle ground, and particularly on things like the 9-dash line or the 10-dash line, which we know sort of cuts through almost the whole South China Sea. I know it's ruled in the arbitral ruling that it had no legal basis in law, but do you understand what that line is meant to imply and what China wants?
Well, we don't recognize the 9-dash line or the 10-dash line. The so-called 10-dash line. In fact, the arbitral ruling clearly indicated that the 9-dash line is certainly completely inconsistent with UNCLOS. Really, the issue here is what law are you going to apply in this area in the West Philippine Sea or South China Sea? We adopted the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea, that was adopted by almost the entire international community, and to provide the basis on how nations should cooperate and the rules of engagement in that area. The real issue here is the fact that a certain country is applying its own domestic laws or its own interpretation of UNCLOS. And that is where the root of the tensions really will begin, because if a country doesn't abide by what it agreed to and doesn't allow other countries to exercise those rights, then you really have a recipe for tensions in the region.
And yeah, as a researcher and before as a journalist, I've been writing about rising tensions in the South China Sea for 15 years, and it sounds very abstract, right? But in concrete terms, I mean, for the Philippines, like day to day, what does this actually mean? What sort of incidents are happening, and what sort of pressures are you feeling? Can you paint a bit of a picture for our audience of the sorts of pressures you're feeling day to day from China? Well,
a lot of it has to do in very practical terms, economic terms. Our fishermen who have been fishing, for example, in these areas lying within our EEZ for literally hundreds of years have been harassed because one country claims that those areas are now within their domestic jurisdiction. And they have harassed our fishermen and prevented them from earning their livelihood, which creates also domestic problems because the fishermen need to earn a living and are being deprived of that ability. The ability of our own companies, for example, to develop natural resources, for example, oil exploration, are also being hindered by the need by one country to be involved in those activities. So these incidents hit home directly. And as you probably recall or have followed in the recent incidents in the past 2 years, in one area we call in the Philippines a Yungin Shoal, it's known as Second Thomas Shoal. We were simply trying to resupply a ship which is on the shoal and where we have military assets, supplying them with food and provisions. But because one country claims that that lies within their area or is questioning our right to be there, they harassed, and in fact a number of incidents occurred over the past 2 years consisting of water cannoning, the use of lasers, even ramming. So this is also of great concern, obviously, because if these incidents were to escalate further, then obviously tensions would really rise dramatically.
And on my travels around Southeast Asia, I've definitely sort of picked up a sense in some other ASEAN capitals that the Philippines government has been needlessly provocative towards China. That's not necessarily what I think, but there's definitely a sense from quite a few other countries in the region, you know, with some of the comments about Taiwan and other issues, the partnership with the US. I mean, I'm sure you've heard similar comments before. What's your response to that? Do you think the Philippines has pushed too hard against China in some respects and is now paying the price?
Well, is trying to resupply a ship provocative? The Philippines has not made any threats to China. We're simply trying to fish. We're simply trying to resupply a ship by bringing food and water. And I made this comment the other day that in the Second Thomas Shoal, we have one ship of 25 military assets. We're delivering food. Yet China has over 50 double-digit number of Coast Guard vessels along Second Thomas Shoal. Second Thomas Shoal is only 70 to 80 miles from the Philippine territorial waters. It's hundreds of miles from Hainan. So I asked the question, why are there so many vessels there? And how can one ship be a threat to China? So I don't see how that's being provocative. Perhaps if the attempts to prevent the resupply were not made, there would be no provocation at all. On Taiwan, we've always had the position, we have the one China policy. We have always had the position that the resolution of disputes on Taiwan should be through peaceful means. And we've urged all the parties concerned to maintain open lines of communication. So again, I don't see where that's provocative because we're urging peace. So I think sometimes the story gets distorted. And the Philippines has always had a positive approach to cooperation. And in no way have we ever said that we are trying to provoke an incident. It's unfortunate, though, that things have happened, but we have to assert our rights.
What is at the root of the dispute? Where is the problem coming from, do you think?
Well, I think you could look at it from two perspectives. First, of course, there's the resource and economic perspective. Of course, South China Sea is known to possess vast reserves of resources, also marine life. And these are things that we have to preserve and protect. The second is the strategic nature of the South China Sea or West Philippine Sea. So much of world trade and commerce passes through the South China Sea that means that any increase or tensions or even worse, a conflict in the South China Sea would affect not only the littoral states or the states in the region, but the international community, because it would have profound effects on global trade and commerce. And then from our perspective in the Philippines, another key issue is international law and abiding by international law as agreed. And in this particular case, the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea. It's important, given the fact that so many countries surround the West Philippine Sea and the South China Sea. It's important that international law, that is UNCLOS, provide the basis to ensure greater cooperation within the region, along the South China Sea and in the South China Sea. And by disregarding the convention and in fact sometimes making domestic laws prevail over international law, this provides a real basis for increasing tensions and perhaps even at some point conflict, which of course we hope doesn't happen. So it's really abiding by international law and the UNCLOS and the rule of law, which is also at stake here in the South China Sea.
And yeah, again, looking at the slightly longer term picture, what do you think that Beijing is trying to achieve in the South China Sea? Do you have a sense, as you try to deter them and manage these incidents that happen, daily or weekly, do you know what they're actually what point they're trying to get to in the next 5, 10, 15 years?
Well, what I really would like to say is that we are looking at this issue from the perspective of Philippine interests. We have, of course, in the UNCLOS, we have what many nations possess too, is an exclusive economic zone. And what we would really like, what we're really aiming for is to allow the Philippines to exercise its rights in its exclusive economic zone, which are all in accordance with international law, UNCLOS. And that is the reason why we feel we're having problems there, is that we're being deprived of that right, actually, to exercise jurisdiction and sovereignty or sovereign rights over areas within our exclusive economic zone as defined by UNCLOS. And by being deprived of those rights, naturally, that would lead to greater tension. So that's how we're viewing the situation in the South China Sea.
And how worried are you that some of these incidents could spiral into accidental conflict? Do you feel that there are enough channels between the Philippines and China to at least manage the risk of an accidental spiral into conflict?
Well, the Philippines is absolutely committed to seeing how we can manage these incidents, these disputes peacefully. And in fact, we have mechanisms with China. We have what we call the bilateral consultation mechanism on the South China Sea, which meets regularly, roughly twice a year. It was created 8 years ago precisely to provide a means for discussing incidents such as those which occurred over the past 2 years, and as well as exploring ways where the Philippines and China can cooperate on maritime issues. and cooperation. So that's one means. We have also other dialogues with China, foreign ministry dialogues, etc. So we have vehicles. Of course, it's not that easy, but we have vehicles for mechanisms for discussing these incidents. Of course, we don't expect that these mechanisms will lead to the grand solutions immediately, but they provide means for talking and discussing, and for perhaps in some ways even letting off tensions. But of course, we are open to even exploring other mechanisms to see how this can work. But at the same time, we're also building up our partnerships with other countries in the region.
And how worried are you about other kinds of pressures from China, economic pressure, or meddling in your internal affairs to try and sort of drive wedges? We know that in the past, like in many countries, China has been quite a divisive issue in your domestic politics. So aside from the South China Sea incidents, how worried are you about these other sort of mechanisms or methods of pressure or coercion from Beijing?
Well, I can speak, not exactly. We haven't experienced yet the economic pressures that you're saying. China still remains our #1 trading partner. But, I think all countries nowadays are trying to develop policies of economic resilience and adaptation in order precisely to address possibilities of let's say, experiencing pressure from a certain partner, a big partner. And this is the reason why we, for example, in the case of the Philippines, we have been trying to build up our economic partnerships with other countries in the region, precisely so that the reliance on one country is not so great. And so we have increased our economic partnerships with countries in the region, and even with the United States we're exploring, and even, as I mentioned earlier, with the European Union, a free trade arrangement. So that in a way would be enhancing the economic resilience of a country in the event that there are situations where they face economic pressures. In the South China Sea, for instance, disregarding international law, especially the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea, has exacerbated long-standing disputes. Tensions heightened over the past 2 years due to illegal, coercive, and aggressive actions against legitimate actions by Philippine authorities in maritime zones under our sovereignty and sovereign rights and jurisdiction as provided for under UNCLOS. The Philippine position on the West Philippine Sea or South China Sea disputes has, however, always been clear and consistent. Maritime claims cannot exceed the limits set by the UNCLOS, and the Philippines will defend its national interests and maritime entitlements, but at the same time are committed to diplomacy and the peaceful settlement of disputes. Partnerships with countries such as the United Kingdom are crucial for our security in all its aspects. The Philippines also welcomes UK's Indo-Pacific policy as a commitment towards more deliberate engagement in the region, including the Philippines. We're also strengthening, the Philippines, our partnerships with other key actors in the region, of course with the United States, which is our treaty ally, Japan, Australia, ROK, Canada, India, Vietnam, and of course ASEAN too, especially in the context of enhancing the ASEAN community, and on the political front, negotiations on a code of conduct in the South China Sea. So